What's up, everyone? I'm Vince Ingenito. Welcome to our second day of the Destiny Review in Progress panel discussion. I'm Vince Ingenito, the lucky guy who gets to review Destiny for you folks. This is my good friend, John Ryan.
Aww.
This is my other good friend, Dan Stapleton.
Well, pretty good.
Pretty good. And this is my extremely good friend, Naomi Kyle.
Oh my god.
How you guys doing?
I'm good.
How are you doing, Vince? You've been slogging through Destiny, and it's a pleasant slog.
It's been a very, as slogs go, it's been a pretty solid one. So what we're talking about today is, does Destiny have an identity crisis? It's so, and I don't mean this in middling sounds bad, but it's so nebulous. It sits between so many other different kinds of experiences that I'm not sure who exactly it's for in like kind of the purest sense. So,
well, I mean, it's a shooter.
Sure.
It's an RPG.
Sure.
It's
MMO.
MMO.
Yeah.
MMO elements,
co-op.
Yeah.
Like it's just so much things all rolled into one ball.
So much thing.
All
the
things.
Many things. Wow.
Okay.
Yep. Get out.
No, totally. It's like we fall into this trap of categorizing games as like, hey, it's like this, but with that. It's like Halo, but with Diablo. It's like Borderlands, but with a splash of World of Warcraft. Yeah. You know, but this game, when you define it in those ways, any of those comparisons you do are kind of reductive. They don't have the nuance to really explain what the experience is like.
Right. There's no set thing. It's just a mishmash of small pieces of everything.
Yeah. So it's like So if you're a Halo fan, right? If you love single-player Halo, you don't really play a lot of multiplayer, but you just want a great single-player experience, does Destiny measure up on that level?
I mean, I've been soloing a lot of missions, and they're fun. They're super fun. Mm-hmm. But when you look at just a single-player campaign, a lot of people are going to be in it for the narrative, and I'm not totally sure. I don't know what the payoff is. I'm probably about halfway through the campaign right now, and I just don't really know if the narrative's got that locomotive power to really keep me going all the way through.
I'm not as far in as you. I'm like level 7, but I'm gonna straight up say no. It's not. It's not a great single player shooter like in the way that Halo is. The story isn't there. The level design it's the wide open level design, so it's not as focused as Halo is.
Right. The levels, if I can correct, maybe you mean I think the levels are well designed, but the missions are not that you do within those levels aren't anything more than go to point B, and shoot things.
But so is Halo to some extent. It's like they've set up
every game,
right? But they've set up an A to B point, like in a pretty straight line, and so they can make that line very interesting. In this, it's a much more open thing, so that path is not necessarily going to be as interesting.
Sure,
but
that's a good point.
Yeah, so it's just a different design philosophy. It's not really set up to be that kind of roller coaster ride that you get out of a Halo game. Also, you can't pause.
Yeah,
that is the hard part.
So like if you are the kind of single player gamer who just likes to pick up and play, and then maybe you have to stop and pay attention to something else for a little while, this game makes it a little harder.
If you're in the darkness at the very start, I've realized that you can kind of leave it wallowing for a bit.
Oh yeah, if you find a quiet corner.
You'll find corners you can
Yeah.
But that's the thing that's crazy about it is that you can completely play the game as if it's a single-player game. You don't have to join into a party to do the missions. At least none of the ones I've done so far. Fire teams, you need a group, and you're forced to.
Yeah, for the strike missions, you absolutely need to.
I'm sorry, for the strike missions.
Yeah, that's right. You'd be sorry.
But
sorry.
Don't hit me. No, but it's funny because even if you're not playing with someone, you have to have that mentality that you would in an MMO, where if you start an instance in an MMO, you're committed to it. You're not pausing. You're not getting up in the middle of it.
Yeah.
You're just doing it. But at the same time,
another thing.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
The other thing for me is I was playing it kind of as a single player game as well, and I was in a firefight last night, and it was just some generic enemies, and all of a sudden somebody else came through and just killed him. Yeah. I'm like, I kind of had that. I was going to win that, and it's like, okay, thanks, I guess.
See, for me, it takes away the satisfaction of doing it by yourself, because that's what you're hoping for, right? Especially when you're playing single player.
But that is the single player experience you're looking for. So if you want, if you're stacking this up against Halo single player, it's a different thing. It's not necessarily bad. But that thing, like for me, it's like, hey, it's kind of cool that there are other people in this same world, just like it is in an MMO.
Living, breathing thing, as they say.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, usually, if I'm playing a single player game, or even if I'm playing a game that has multiplayer integrated into it in some fashion, I've never really wanted to go from single player to multiplayer before, but this is the first time I've sat down with a game for an extended period of time played through a mission once and be like, okay, I really can't wait to go back through that with 2 friends or with 3 or 4 friends.
And the flip side of this whole thing, right, is that you go, okay, well, the story doesn't measure up. I agree with you, Dan, completely. I don't feel like the story measures up really. I think the world and the atmosphere is interesting.
It's
but
pretty.
I don't think the story. Yeah, it's pretty. I don't think the story measures up. But then you come from the other angle. You go, well, if we are to look at it from the standpoint of another, they call it a shared world shooter, but it's structurally very much like an MMO.
It's like Guild Wars.
Right, exactly. It's like Guild Wars. So it's
Yeah,
like if you
I
look
see
at it from that perspective, it's like, well, if you compare the story on, to those caliber of stories, it's not really that bad anymore. But the problem is that once you start comparing it to an MMO, then you get into other problems. Like, how come I can see other people running around everywhere and I can't talk to anybody, right?
I mean, you can't. It's hard to be the hero of a story when everyone is the hero of the story.
Right.
Like in Halo, you are Master Chief. You are the hero of that story. Here, you are one hero among thousands, hundreds of thousands.
And at the end of the day, it's like no matter which one you try to compare it to, it'll look strong in some ways, but it'll look weak in others.
Yeah.
So it's like if you come to it as an MMO player who wants a good MMO, maybe you won't be fully satisfied. A shooter fan, you might not be completely satisfied. An action RPG fan, you might not be completely satisfied. But it does all those things relatively well.
I think it will satisfy a lot of multiplayer fans because what it really does successfully is marry that kind of single player feel of combat. Like there's none of the floatiness you tend to get in MMOs, none of the kind of feeling out of sync, and a lot of just very precise shooting.
Yeah.
And it marries that with the social aspects of an MMO, which it does a very good job of.
I think it does do a very good job. And
the loot.
The loot is definitely a plus.
Always a plus. So I think it's clear, if nothing else, I think it's going to be a very divisive game. Different people who come to it with different expectations will have different experiences, but that's all the time we have for today. Be sure to tune in tomorrow, 10 a.m., bright and early, when I will be going through our 3rd day of live streaming, and shortly thereafter, a 3rd Destiny Review in Progress video panel. Thank you to everyone who joined in today, and thank you folks for watching, and thank you for the dangling dinklage.
Dangling dinklage, everybody.
We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks, folks.